In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what it looks like and what it takes to heal anxious attachment, and how finally understanding that you have an insecure attachment can be the catalyst you've been waiting for to bring about the change in your life that you might never knew was possible. And for myself, as I've deepened into this work, I've discovered more and more parts of myself, and I finally feel free to love and be loved in the way I never thought was really possible and I didn't know I needed. Like there's finally some motion in areas of my life that felt stuck for so many years. And now there's a lightness in places that felt really heavy. And so if this video finds you in the process of making some big changes in your life, know that I sit with you. I have been where you are, searching for answers and direction. I've been looking at my relationships up close and been bewildered to how did they get there, and not really accepting the role my anxious attachment behavior had in my relationships. This created a pathway to my own understanding and healing. Now, it's important to note that anxious attachment it's more of a symptom than a problem. And we know that if we want symptoms to alleviate, we have to address the underlying problem. So we're also going to explore what that problem might be and how to heal this deeper, darker driving force that's causing a lot of problems in all aspects of your life. So we're all on the same page. Let's briefly talk about what attachment styles are in the first place. They basically refer to how you as an individual have developed a certain style for how you go out into the world and relate to all the people in your life, your friends, your romantic partner, family, whatever. And we characterize this style by kind of two things: what you have learned to fear in relationships and how you've learned to respond to that fear. In other words, what moments do you find stressful and how do you manage your stress? And that's your style. So people are typically going to fall into one of these four categories. So secure, this means you feel pretty comfortable in relationships. You trust others, you're okay being on your own, and you're also comfortable with being vulnerable. Anxious, which means you tend to be worried that people are going to leave, so you need constant reassurance from them, and you over-accommodate to keep people close, like being really available or monitoring their moods and then trying to fix their mood. And then we have avoidant, which means there is a discomfort when things get too close, when people get too close, because they are worried about losing their independence or the control they have over their life. So having to depend on others or having others depend on them can induce a lot of stress or this felt pressure that they have to live up to. And the last style is disorganized, which has a few different names, but essentially means a mixture of the two, of anxious and avoidant. On the outside looks like confusion or ambiguous behavior, because internally what's happening is they both really want to connect, but also deeply afraid of it. Now, most people are going to fall into the first three categories, and sometimes people can bounce back and forth between them without really meaning that they are disorganized. But typically we have one underlying style that we default to in relationships. So why aren't we not all secure? Why does this happen in the first place? Now, the theory is that these attachment styles are learned behavior. So if we go right back to the beginning of our learning, and yes, I mean the beginning of you as you came out the womb, we can begin to understand how we learn this behavior. So as a young person, as a infant, a baby, a child, and then a teenager, how the people in your life showed up for you and how you learned to behave in order to get them to respond, this left a lasting blueprint for how you navigate relationships and stress in your life. Because at that point, it was essential for your survival to get that attention from the people in the life who are going to feed you and shelter you. So of course this left a lasting blueprint of how can I survive. So let's say mom and dad weren't around a lot, like one worked late hours or lived in a different house or were busy taking care of a sick sibling. As a young person, you'd be confused, like, where did you go? And nervous and anxious about, are they going to be there for me when I need them? So then you try to get their attention. Maybe you're really helpful and tidy and help with cooking, or maybe you try to make them laugh. And if that worked well, then the story you then tell yourself is, I'm not enough just as myself, and I have to do things to earn mom and dad's love. And if that was the case, then maybe you developed an anxious attachment. But if it didn't work, if your attempts to get their attention fell flat, then you might have learned that you only have yourself that you can count on, and therefore learned an avoidant attachment. But as these little beings grow older, the story that they learned when they were little, well, it sticks with them in their heads, and the behaviors that they learn to maintain connection or protect themselves from hurt, this stays in their body, and both of these follow them into their adult relationships. Now, I think it's safe to say that the attachment style is not the problem. It's just the symptom of those inner wounds that we carried from our childhood. It's all those stories that are running on autopilot that are saying, I'm not enough as I am, or everyone always leaves. And this acts as the guideline for our behavior when we get into relationships, causing all the painful symptoms that are messing up our relationships. Now, maybe you're new to attachment styles, or you've been dipping your feet into the attachment stream for a while. Either way, you are noticing something painful happen in your life that you want to change. You see, if you are insecurely attached, and I'm going to talk about anxious attachment because that's the one I speak to through my own personal and professional experience. But in your life, whether you're aware of this or not, you have this inner voice, one that tracks all the way back to your childhood. And this voice is saying, if other people tell me I'm okay, then I get to feel okay. So you might find yourself being a people pleaser, one that doesn't want to let others down or say no. You might have challenges setting boundaries or respecting other people's. You might have a hard time trusting others, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you might have a hard time communicating how you really feel because you're scared of the repercussions. And you notice that you try to be what they want, or you might try to be a perfectionist. And you might have noticed a pattern where you gloss over the negative aspects about other people and relationships, and maybe you stay too long in those ones. And when you do get into a new relationship, you find yourself going from 0 to 100, like you're attracted and attached to them really quickly. And another common thing is that you have a hard time with clarity, right? You need to know what's happening. You need to have things crystal clear. You can't tolerate not knowing. Like when someone doesn't text you back or gives you one-worded mysterious answers, that's the worst for you. All of these are common experiences for people with anxious attachment. But the important thing here is all of these behaviors, all of them stem from a deep-rooted abandonment of self, which is ironic given that at the core of anxious attachment lies the fear of being left, of being abandoned or rejected, the fear that says, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, and when they find that out, they're going to leave me. So what I have to do is try to be perfect in relationships, not let anyone down. I have to make them as happy as possible, make sure they have everything they need. And of course, this is very confusing in relationships when everything falls apart. You're like, I did my best. I did everything I could so this person would be happy and would love me. And it wasn't enough. This is what adds fuel to the fire of, I'm not good enough. But all of this was done with the wrong intention. This was done from a place of fear, not desire. From a place that says, I will be whoever they want me to be, so they will need me and love me and don't ever leave me. But all of that was done to try to meet the needs of your younger self, the needs that never got met when you were a child. And because of this, you're constantly trying to prove that this time round, you will be worthy of love. You will prove to yourself that this time will be different. So you give them everything you can, at whatever cost it has to your own desires, goals, or voice. And this is the crazy thing that anxiously attached people do, is they abandon themselves in order to not be abandoned. Like, we are so terrified of rejection that we consciously reject ourselves first. We reject the parts of us that may come into conflict, that may never be accepted by the other person. We will do everything we can so the relationship goes smoothly. We will even put the person on a pedestal and do everything in our power to be what we think they want in a partner. And so our sense of self is a bit shaky, and it's easier to value someone else's opinion more than our own. And the other person liking us then becomes more important than us liking us, because there is that wound that says we're unlovable and everyone leaves and it's my fault, so forget what I think. That extremely intense fear that is within us then becomes this thing that further propels us away from being our authentic selves. And there is this slow erosion of self. What this does is it leaves you never feeling okay. You are still left searching for that external validation, for someone else to choose you and love you. And so long as you have that, like a person who has chosen you, you conditionally feel okay. The condition being that you have to be in a relationship or have the approval of someone else in order to feel good and whole. It's almost like you are drawing your sense of being, your sense of self, from that other person. Like, you feel okay as long as they're giving you the proof that you're lovable. And if this proof is in jeopardy, well, that's when the anxiety begins to rise, when they begin to do something you don't like if their mood is off or if they haven't texted you back in 3 days. You then spring into action to get back that safety you thought you have, which is usually to hold tighter, to grasp at some idea that you have to fix them in order to fix yourself. And maybe you spam them with messages, or you repeatedly ask them, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are we okay? And all in an attempt to, if I can fix them, I'll fix myself. And this is the great illusion with control, is that it's not possible. You can't control the other person. But as things feel more out of control, the more you do and change, the less of an effect it has. You might even get to the point of resenting the other person because you're like, hey, look at how much I've changed for you. Why don't you love me? Why aren't you trying as hard as me? And then you go between overgiving and feeling resentful. And in this process, conflict becomes too painful and boundaries go out the window, and we grasp at anything to feel steady again, anything but ourselves. So how do we heal this? How do we feel and act secure? Well, before you had an awareness of these behaviors, you thought you had to do this. This is how you had to act in relationships because it had been hardwired into you. The things that happened years ago with your parents or your siblings or past partners, well, it still feels visceral and real. Maybe not consciously, but in your body. And you think this is how you have to be to get the love and affection from mom and dad and now my partners. Like, if your parents only praised you for being good, then you might have become a perfectionist and afraid of anyone seeing the parts of you that were deemed not good. Or if your parents weren't present and didn't support you when you were going through big things, you learned that you can only trust yourself, and you now push other people away as an adult because you can't trust them. And these stories that we latch onto, they are not the truth of what we are. That we are not worthy or safe people can't be trusted. These are the ways in which you learn to abandon yourself in the pursuit of connection. And for anxious attached people, there is this sense of, I need this or I won't be okay. And for the avoidant, it's, if I don't have this, then I won't be in control. Both want control to feel good, but in separate ways, which means that their sense of being okay is in the hands of other people, like whether they are close enough or far enough away. And ultimately, they are running away from the thing that would cause internal peace, which is a strong sense of self. So the question isn't how do we heal anxious attachment? It's how do we feel okay in here? How do we build a strong sense of self that has the internal safety that will naturally release these anxious attachment behaviors and go from I need this out here to I have cultivated what I need within me now. So when something happens I don't like, I know I'll be okay because I no longer leave myself. I no longer reject parts of myself. And I know that my value as a human being has nothing to do with other people. Okay, so now that we have the right question, the one that's how do we build the strong sense of self that builds the internal safety and heals anxious attachment? Well, first I want to acknowledge that this is hard work and it takes time, but it is very, very possible. I know it can feel like your wiring is set in stone, like no matter what you'll do, you'll always be consumed by overthinking. You'll always grip so tight to people so they don't slip away and always feel like you're not measuring up. But the truth is, healing is not about becoming someone else. It's finally coming home to yourself in the deepest ways, building trust with the parts of you that were abandoned so long ago. And again, in your relationships, and creating new ways of relating that actually feel safe and good. So there are a few layers to this. The first is awareness, because what we can't see, we can't change. You might have lived most of your life thinking your behaviors in relationships were just like who you are. Like, I'm just naturally jealous and I just care too much. But awareness lets us take a step back and say, oh, this is a pattern. This is me protecting myself from something that once felt too painful to face. That's where healing begins. And the second layer is updating that internal story and healing those core wounds. Remember that this is what is at the root of anxious attachment. The stories you've been carrying since childhood, the I'm not enough as I am, if I have needs, I'll be left on my own, and love is conditional. Well, these run in the background and they influence everything from how you show up on a date to how you respond when your partner doesn't text back. And healing happens when you begin to show up for yourself in a way that you once needed someone else to. And this looks like reparenting that inner child. So your inner child is the part of you that screams out, I'm not safe. I don't like what's happening. The one that so many years ago learned to earn love or act out to get attention. Yes, that little one is still inside of you and at times is still running the show that is you, especially when it feels like someone is pulling away or criticizing us. This little one then takes over and starts to do what it can to get the reassurance that it needs. So now you have to be aware when this little one is rising up, trying to take the microphone, and you have to be the steady adult who can comfort and reassure and remind that younger part of you that You are safe, you are loved, and I won't leave you. Over time, those moments of self-care and self-compassion, they become the proof that your nervous system needs to build the new truths that were always there, the ones that you are worthy, that you can take up space, and that your needs don't make you unlovable. And this takes time. I still have this little one who pops up every now and then to remind me, Nicole, you're still hurt, and maybe in this moment you need some care. These little ones are wise, and they're not to be shoved away, but they're to be listened to and cared for. Now, even if you're aware of your stories, the ones that your inner child speaks to, you've probably noticed that your body doesn't always get that memo, that the one coming from your adult self that says you're okay. So this brings us to the next layer, which is rewiring our nervous system. This is about teaching your body to tolerate the fire of anxiety without letting it consume you. Instead of panicking when someone pulls away, you build the muscle to sit with the discomfort and breathe and remind yourself that you're safe. This doesn't mean that you don't ever feel anxious again. It means when anxiety shows up, you'll know you can handle it. And over time, that sense of safety rewires your system so the flames don't burn as hot. Only then, once you've got that foundation of self-worth and regulation, do you then move on to relationship skills. Things like boundaries and healthy communication, speaking your needs clearly. I think I see people too often try to start here, like, I'll just set better boundaries and everything will change. But without the foundation, boundaries either collapse under pressure or come out sharp and rigid. Real relational intelligence grows from the inside out. So how does this all work? Well, it looks like reflection, so taking time to understand triggers and patterns. It looks like the reparenting, giving yourself the compassion and the care that wasn't modeled to you. It looks like nervous system practices, breathing, grounding, slowing down. And then as you grow steadier within yourself, you start practicing in real time with your relationships. And then maybe you start pausing before firing off that anxious text. Maybe you notice your body calming when you remind yourself that their mood is not your responsibility. And these new experiences create new neural pathways that are literally reshaping your brain towards security. Healing anxious attachment isn't a one-time fix. It's a ripple effect. Awareness leads you to the cracks in your foundation. Reparenting and nervous system begin to fill those cracks. Then relationship skills build the house on top of that. And what you're left with is this sense of confidence, not just in how you show up in your relationships, but who you are at your core. Imagine how amazing that would be when you can stop fearing everyone's going to leave you, and you can feel okay enough within that you don't need someone to fix your life, but you can build a deep and fulfilling life together. And here's the part I want you to hold on to. Healing doesn't mean becoming perfect or never feeling anxious again. It means you can hold both the love you want and the self you are. It means you don't abandon yourself for connection anymore. It means you can weather conflict, tolerate uncertainty, and stay rooted in your worth. At its core, healing anxious attachment is about becoming your own anchor. It's about knowing that you are safe, that you are enough, that love doesn't require you to shrink or chase, but it invites you to stay fully present as yourself. So if that interests you and you want to get started and you're not sure where, well, I have created a free guide that can begin to point you in the right direction. And I'll include it in the link below. But I want you to remember that this work requires kindness. So be gentle to yourselves. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.